wouldn't advise my son to marry a woman who has a kid with another guy, even if she wasn't married. But then it's a question of prudence versus imprudence.
Now, I would say if she was a widow,
of course, yeah,
that's different because she didn't desire to be unmarried.
Right.
That's a different circumstance.
Right.
That would be like that's the only safe one.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I was like, how do you know that you're marrying a widow? You got to find out. You better see that death certificate.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could do that kind of vetting with the internet today. I just want your audience to see that this stuff isn't just pulled out of a hat. Like it's the more stringent interpretation, but it's the stringent interpretation that the first Christians used. Even you go back to the Didache of the apostles, and they're all saying, we got to take the stricter thing here because you err on the side of caution. And that's the hermeneutic, that means interpretive tradition.
So
Roman Catholic
Church. That's the way to do it. I mean, I agree with you. That's the way to handle things. Not supposed to get divorced, right? Then what authority does a husband have in modernity? One, to keep his wife from divorcing him. Two, to be able to enforce any type of consequence or structure here to, you know what I'm saying, to any safeguards. There's nothing. Because if it's like, okay, well, you can never divorce your wife, even if she cheats on you. So you got to be Hosea. You got to be Hosea and take it. Like, why would any man want to get married?
Well, I mean, if he's Christian?
Yeah. Other than the fact, I know they were supposed to be fruitful and multiply. And if you can't withhold temptation, right? Paul writes, it's better for you to marry, than be burning with lust.
I'm really glad. I'm glad you framed it this way, Glenn, because if we're addressing a nation of Christian young men, which is really what we were founded as, we're supposed to be. Forget Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox. Just let's talk about Christians who believe Scripture is inerrant.
Yeah.
Then why would they, even with the downside, everything's got downsides. This is what you learn as a lawyer. Every argument has weaknesses. This is one of the weaknesses now is in the modern era, the lawfare is against men and it's for women. That's absolutely right. But that's not the whole story. The whole story is for Christian men. Let's start with also Genesis, one of the first big propositions in Genesis in the creation of Adam and Eve. It is bad for man to be alone. It's not good.
Yeah.
Living a life of even celibacy, which the church smiles on, lifelong celibacy, is not normal. Some of the great saints did it, but most of the great saints, were clerics. So it's normal and good for a man to couple with a woman. It's a natural drive. It's a drive that's written on our hearts. It's a drive that, as we all can attest to, is written kind of in the loins. Men want to be with women because women are beautiful. Even the ones that aren't that pretty are still a lot prettier.
They're still better looking than men.
Yeah, they're still way better. Hey, the average woman, you get into the 405 conversation, and it's like, look, the average thin woman, as long as she doesn't get fat, is still somewhat pretty. Yeah. And that's just what straight men all believe. So men naturally want to be with women. It's ordained in Scripture that it's good, not for the sake of multiplying alone, but that's what you want. Men naturally want children. Men naturally want a legacy. But more than that, it's written on our hearts and our loins. We don't want to be alone. You get a good wife who abides the frame. No, I have a good wife that abides, anything I say, and I'm kind of a laid back dude.
Oh yeah. I remember meeting your wife when on the pro stream. Like, yeah.
Yeah, like we're chill, but if I do, I don't go around barking orders, but if I do, and half the time she's just trying to predict what I want before I do it. And she's a good woman. I try my hardest to be a good man. It helps that we are kind of like best friends because we're rare. So we're playing, rock clubs in Dallas, and we just fell into the same friend group, and we're dating other people, and we became really good friends and then started dating. We're just madly in love by the time we went on our first date. We were just cut out for each other. But, so, I mean, it helps to choose really wisely. But the point is, kind of like we said with the deodorant in lawfare, if a man's unwilling to set frame and to enforce it, and even I feel like I married the best woman in the world. But even then, the first 2, 3, 4 years of marriage, you have to see it as proving grounds. Even having married the best woman in the world, those first few years, I knew I had to set frame, and I wasn't reading red pill content. I just knew that after the honeymoon period ends, then both of you are like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park, testing the fences.
Yep.
And that's when you have to say, no, look, I'm in charge. And she was never a feminist. She grew up with kind of a feminist mom. She always thought that was nasty. She never wanted to be feminist, but it's in the water. So I'd say, no, look, this is how it's going to be. And it's not, I'm not trying to be a dick. It's, I'm not, but this is how it's going to be. And, you got to trust me on this. And just by year 5, 6, 7, 8, you're just getting better and better. But what I see is a lot of men that fail to do that in year 1, 2, 3, 4. And therefore,
well, you got to admit, like for the last 40 years, they've been taught to be good servant leaders and serve their wife. Like